Let's talk about one of the most basic parts of music theory, and that's how you can figure out what key a song is in. So this all starts with the major scale. So let's just grab the major scale, which is a G major scale right here. Starts on your 3rd fret of your low E string, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And your 8 is your octave, so that's where it starts over again. So those notes, there's 7 notes in a major scale, and those 7 notes make up your 7 chords of your major scale. So each one of those notes and those scale degrees within that major scale has a corresponding chord that goes along with it. And one thing you need to understand, so you're going to want to write this down, you're going to want to understand this, it's very helpful, is that of those 7 chords in a key, you have 3 chords that are major, you have 3 chords that are minor, and then you have 1 chord that's diminished. And they're always the same chords relative to those scale degrees. So this is where the Nashville number system kind of comes in, because you have your 1 chord, your 2 chord, your 3 chord, your 4 chord, your 5 chord, your 6 chord, your 7 chord, and then you have your 1 chord again. So of those chords, the 3 that are major are your 1, your 4, and your 5. So if you know your major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a major chord. 5, it's a major chord. So your 1, 4, 5 are always major. Your 2, 3, and 6 are always minor. So you have a 1 chord here. You have a 2 chord right here. You have a 3 chord either here or down here. And those are always minor. And then your 4 would be here, your 5 would be here, your 6 would be here. And then that leaves 1 more chord that's diminished, and that's your 7th chord. And diminished chords aren't typically used in popular music. On this channel, we're trying to have fun and we're trying to get better at guitar. So if that's something you're into, then please like and subscribe. Some songs use them, some artists use them, so you may come by them, but there's a reason that 99% of YouTubers just skip the 7th chord all the time. And it's because it's a diminished chord that has a lot of dissonance to it. And it isn't used a ton because it's not very melodic and it just doesn't sound great in chord progressions unless you really know how to use it as like a passing chord. So your 7th chord's not used that often. So if you have chords in a chord progression, and we're in the key of G, right? So let's just say we move to the key of A, and you didn't know it was the key of A, but you had an A, a D, an E, and an F sharp minor in there. And maybe that chord progression goes A to E to F sharp minor to D. Well, you may not know right off the bat that that's in the key of A. And the way you would find out is go find your A chord. And a prerequisite for this that's really helpful is knowing the note names, or at least being able to figure them out on your low E and your A string. Because that way you can figure out if these chords are in the same key together, right? So you have an A chord, to an E chord, to an F sharp minor chord, to a D chord. Well, we talked about the major scale, right? And you could figure this out with the major scale and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and try and figure out what this 6th note is down here on your D string, which there's easy ways to figure that out. You have your octaves that you can use and jumping off points like that to figure out what those notes are. Or you can change the way this scale looks and you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you have this little 6-note pattern, and you could add in your 7th and your 1 again. And you can use this 6-note pattern. So if you find one of these chords and you find it on your low E string, then you're going to be able to figure out if it's in that key. So this chord progression starts with an A, so you'd probably want to start with your A and figure out, well, is this in the key of A? Well, you can use that little 6-note pattern to figure out that I have an A chord here. My next chord's an E, so that's part of that pattern. Then you have a 6th chord here. And you have a 4-chord here. So that's very common chord progression, and it's going to give you an idea that, okay, this is in the key of A, right? Because it fits within that 6-note scale. It's in the major scale. All of these chords are in my major scale. They're all derived from my major scale, and that's how you figure out the key that a song is in. And, you know, if you have a diminished chord in your key, then you can start looking for a 7th chord. But if you just have basic major and minor chords, then you can pretty much use this little pattern to find out what 95% of songs are in. And the only place that this really doesn't work is when you start having borrowed chords from other keys. And you may have instances that don't come up often, but you may have instances where somebody changed the chord function of a chord. So instead of having a minor 3rd chord, it's a major 3rd chord. So that would mean, like, in the key of A, your 3 chord is typically supposed to be minor. Well, they might have turned that into a major chord. But it would still fall into your pattern and you'd still be able to figure out what key it is. It may just throw you off a little bit as to why they changed the function of that chord. But you can still use this pattern 90–95% of the time to figure out what key you're in, and then you can figure out what scale you want to solo with, or you can use that pattern to transpose this into another key and play it differently if you want to transpose it so that you can sing it better and put it into a lower or a higher pitched key. I hope you like this lesson. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.